All right, well, let's start because it's 6:40. Do we have to record anything?
I
It's
think
already
it's
recording. Already
Recording.
recording. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so this is the June 24th, 2020 meeting of the Ranked Choice Voting Ad Hoc Committee. And the call to order is that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say anything else.
Oh, are you supposed to say the
Oh, the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I haven't been given a copy of it. Do you have a copy of it?
It's probably in my email somewhere.
I mean, this is being conducted over Zoom because of the remote meeting due to COVID-19 restrictions. I know there was a thing because it was read in the other meeting I was in, but I don't have a copy of it, so.
Yeah, that's probably good enough.
Okay. Great. So public speak, we do not have the public here today, so hopefully next time. Then we have approval of April 23rd minutes. Was everyone able to look at those? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we need 5 people to have a quorum, right? Or is it 4?
F plus 1. So
4,
7.
right? Because there's 7 on the committee, so.
yeah, that sounds right.
So we can vote on things, right? The
Yeah.
5 of us? Okay.
I did correct the spelling Sarah's last name, so
Thank you.
Oh,
sorry.
nice. Was everyone able to look at the minutes?
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Sarah.
So motioned, unless someone said that?
That was me.
Second?
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Do we need to do a roll call, do you think, Tom?
Well, I guess that would probably be the proper way to do it.
Okay.
Because that's how, even in the council committees,
Yeah.
with 3 people, that's how we've
Okay.
been doing it.
All right, Dan Gilbert,
Aye.
Chris Korzak,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Sarah Amorosa,
Hi.
and myself. Aye.
I'm
Great. Approve the minutes. We need a new secretary to take notes. So I'm going to split this into 2 little bits, which is somebody has to take notes tonight. And since I know Barbara has been doing that, I would love to have somebody else do that. Is anyone willing to take notes for tonight's meeting?
I can do it tonight. I'm not going to do it permanently.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
All right, give me a second to get a window open, and you're going to have to bear with my clacking.
That's
Thanks,
fine.
Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, so Sarah is going to do the notes tonight and the minutes for this meeting. And then going forward, ideally, we need to have a secretary or a plan for a secretary. So we could, if either of you are willing to be secretary, that's awesome. If not, then we're just going to have a temporary secretary that we pick at the start of every meeting.
How about we make it alphabetical, since my name is alphabetically first? We can proceed in that direction. We can, to be fair, we could skip over Barb. That would only be fair.
Yeah, I'm down with that. That's fine. It's going to be difficult for me to share and take notes.
I think as chair, you probably shouldn't take the minutes because it is difficult.
Okay. So I'm happy with that plan for the time being, up until the point that somebody is willing to be a permanent secretary, in which case we will allow them to do that. So.
Yep, I think Owen sounds good.
I mean, Owen does sound good. We could vote Owen in as secretary.
A motion.
Since he's not here. Is that, I don't know if that's unethical or not, but
That's what you get.
Yep.
I'll defer to all of you guys on that one.
You know, honestly, like, we did the rotating thing for the charter review committee, and it worked really well. just
Okay.
sort of spreading that out among a bunch of people so it isn't too much of a hassle for anybody.
Okay. All right. Well, so do we have a motion to adopt a alphabetical rotation of?
Members.
Can I make motions as the chair? I guess I can, right?
I move that the secretary duties be given alphabetically among the members who are not chair.
Second.
I'll just amend that to say that we'll skip Barbara for the first rotation.
Okay.
All right.
We have a second. Any thoughts on that? We kind of already discussed it. I guess we have to vote.
Okay. I can do the roll calling. Dan
Okay.
Gilbert,
Aye.
Chris Korzak,
Aye.
Tom Peak,
Aye.
Sarah Amoroso,
Aye.
and myself. Unanimous.
Great. So Sarah is going to be secretary for this meeting. Next meeting will be Chris. Meeting after that will be Tom. Meeting after that will be Owen. Or Barbara, if Barbara Craig is here the next meeting, that would be her. So we'll see.
Hey, Barb, when you did the minutes for this meeting, did you just watch the recording? Is that how you did it?
I had some notes and they weren't very good. That's why the minutes are pretty general.
No, mine, yeah.
Because I did it yesterday
Yeah, okay.
or the day before. Yeah,
I thought they were great. So,
really.
I mean, I don't know that we need a lot more detail.
Yeah. I think just general description is, usually good.
Yep. Okay, great. So that's settled. And then the main thing, so there's one item of new business that I'm going to be adding as a very quick discussion a little bit later. And I think I'm going to just address number 6 here, the discussion of ordinance progress, which is that now, so me, Owen, and Tom are going to be working on the specifics of that, at least for the time being, and they should now at least have access to editing that document. So, Tom, were you able to pull that up?
Yeah, I was, and it was
Okay, good.
exactly what, between the document itself and the things that you sent, the PDFs that you sent, I feel like that's exactly what we need to make progress on this.
Yep. So the ordinance thing, really, in terms of the ordinance progress, that's sort of tabled because me and Owen and Tom are going to be working on that online, but offline as far as the committee goes. So, but number 5, discussion of tally parameters is really the main thing I wanted to talk about in tonight's meeting. And let me just pull up that file. Okay, so I made this worksheet. Everyone get a copy of that PDF. It says Easthampton RCV profile settings at the top.
Yeah.
These are all of the settings that we need to figure out for the software and for the ordinance in general. And, these, for the most part, I see your hand and I'll in a sec. For the most part, these are going to apply, or I think my suggestion for how we conceptualize this is that we apply these to a single winner race. I mean, we're only implementing this for single winner races, and we also want the ordinance to potentially be adaptable so that we can add multi-winner races easily later. However, for the profile settings, I think they need to be defined on a basis of, is this single winner or multi-winner? So I think going into this, we should think about it as it just being a single winner race. One of the reasons is our RCV method right at the top is you're choosing IRV or STV. So IRV is what you'd use in a single winner race, and STV is what you would probably use in a multi-winner race. So yeah, Tom.
For the benefit of anyone who might watch this meeting later, would you be able to share those documents?
Oh, yeah. How can I do that?
Okay, maybe, let me see if I need to.
It's disabled, or screen sharing.
Now it should be enabled.
Okay, let's see. Share. So. Okay. All right, I'm doing it now. Okay.
You
Is it big?
yes, and that. Sorry,
That looks good.
yeah, but it took away my
Well,
my window where I was typing.
Oh no.
This is probably a me problem.
Yeah, sir, if you go up to the top, there's a view options thing and you can exit full screen.
Okay, view options, exit full screen. Thank you very much, Tom.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.
I don't
Okay.
know about a lot of things, but I now know a whole lot about Zoom.
Yeah.
This is probably why my husband has 3 screens for his work.
So, so this is the document that I'm talking about for anybody who is watching this video. And these are based on the settings that are in Democracy Suite EMS version 5.5, whatever. I'm forgetting the point there. So this is divided into 2 top and bottom. The top ones are you're picking one of the options for each of these headers. And then for the bottom, these are yes or no's. So you're saying either this is on or it's off. And this is the entirety of the settings that we need to figure out as a committee. So the other document that I shared that I think everybody got is the excerpt from the Democracy Suite RTR, which is Results Tally and Reporting Module user guide, which goes over all of these except for one. And I believe that is a thing that was added in a recent version. So we will be a little bit flying blind on that for the moment. I don't necessarily expect us to make a decision on every single one of these right now in this meeting. But I do want to go through them because I think that one of the most valuable things we can accomplish as this committee is figure out what questions do we need answered in order to decide, in order to vote on what these settings should actually be. So do we need more information? Do we have that information? Do we need to reach out to Jeff? Do we need to reach out to the RCV Resource Center? Do we need to just do research on our own? Whatever that is, I think we can either make a decision about what these should be based on our current knowledge of them, or we can have this list of questions that we can bring to the next meeting, bring answers to the next meeting so that we can decide on them. Does everyone, this isn't like a motion or anything, but does everyone feel like that's a decent use of our time and progress or process for this?
it does. For me, I looked at this and I have no idea what I have no idea what it means.
Right, and that's fine because we do have this guide, and our goal is if we don't know, if any of us don't. So first of all, if you don't understand something, there is no, you're not expected. None of you are expected to understand all of these. I don't understand all of these, and there's no problem in saying, I don't feel comfortable making a decision on this, or I don't understand this enough. Our goal right now is to figure out what we need in order to fully understand these and make a decision on them, not to think that we already know the answers to them. So,
do you have an idea how, I know Jeff has been talking with Amherst, and he'd said something about them doing some demo ballots and then making the profile from that. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really understand that.
Okay. I had thought that I shared some of the Amherst
You may.
test document stuff, and unfortunately, I feel like that stuff would really be nice to go over in person and not over Zoom. But Zoom is what we have. So maybe after we look at some of this stuff, I can pull up some of that stuff too. The reality is it was very similar to the test ballots that he made for us, except that they were pre-filled with various different patterns of voting, and then that was tallied using the software. It wasn't a whole lot more than that. There were some log files, I think. Let me just, I don't want to be giving wrong information here. Open. Documents. My computer's a mess, and I'll have to locate it somehow.
Dan, maybe you could, since you kind of seem to know this, maybe we could just start at the top one and just talk about it. And if you have any information,
Yep.
you know, we can just start and see what you know.
That was my thought, was that we just kind of work our way down. And you know, we also have this guide. So I was just gonna, I was gonna do that one by one. So, sorry, I opened the full one, which is like 150 pages. The excerpt. So this manual is for Democracy Suite version 5.2-CO, which I'm interpreting as meaning Colorado. So it's slightly old, but it's still, I mean, the screenshots that Jeff sent are identical to, or almost identical to the ones that are in this manual. So my determination is that it's everything, all this information is relevant to what we're
Hey, Dan,
talking about. Yeah.
are you sharing a second document?
On the screen?
Yeah, I only see the first one.
So the second one is that that guide document. I wonder if, is it possible for me to do two at once?
I don't know if
how
you
to
can do
that.
two at once, but you could switch to the other.
I
You
could
just
switch to the other.
something,
Let's see
so
if
I
can
wasn't
do that.
sure.
Let me share.
Tom, you talking about that line?
Here,
Oh,
there we
yeah.
go.
There it
Yeah, I
is.
can see
So
it.
that's the other one. So this is the other one for anyone watching the video. I think I'm gonna leave it on. Oh, I don't know what to leave it on. Well, I'll leave it on this one for the time being, since it's got some good info. Why did everyone's? There we go. So for
because all this information that's on here is
Yeah.
on the front page, like the three options.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this really is the more helpful one.
Okay. Good.
It's kind of simple.
So the first one on here, so we'll kind of just, I think we should just run down these, is RCV method. So this is the method of tabulating to select a winner. So IRV stands for instant runoff voting, which I think everyone here is relatively familiar with. STV is single transferable vote. For the purposes of this software, it is the weighted inclusive Gregory method. I have no idea what that means. This implements a fractional surplus transfer of elected candidates, which to me sounds like, I think it's Scottish STV, where you're doing proportional votes in subsequent rounds. But since we're doing single winner races, this one I think is a no-brainer in that we are doing instant runoff voting. Points IRV is not, it's a district per district basis with each district has a set number of points, and we're not doing that. I mean, that's rare, and I guess it's if you wanted to weight the decision of each district equally, but we're doing citywide elections or precinct-wide elections, but we're not trying to balance out the different precincts by points. So I think this one's a no-brainer, and I think it's IRV.
I agree.
That sounds reasonable.
Do we feel comfortable making a decision on this and just saying that's what it's going to be?
I have a question. I mean, I wonder if Jeff was to, I mean, I wonder if he could say which ones are the more common ones on all of these, besides this first one that's probably easy.
I was wondering if we might run it by him and ask, like, is this going to do what we really think it's going to do?
Yeah.
Like ask
Well,
yeah.
which ones would be the most common, the common
Yes.
No?
So I think that in making our decisions here, these should be tentative based on feedback from our vendor.
Yeah.
So anything that we decide going through these on sort of a first pass should be with the expectation that we're going to get a final round of input from experts. Is that fair to say?
What would you call him, just for the sake of the notes? Vendor, voting something vendor.
LHS.
I'm sorry?
LHS.
Just for the clarity of the notes, so people will know who we're talking about.
Vendor representative?
He's the president.
President of LHS Associates.
LHS Associates.
Is he like a voting services vendor? What would you call him?
They're an election services vendor, sure.
Okay.
You could say they're our equipment vendor
Okay.
or something like that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear for people who read the notes.
Yeah, to clarify, Dominion is the manufacturer of the machines and the software. LHS is the vendor that interfaces with the city on that stuff.
Yeah.
So they're sort of they do sales, but they also do support and education. Okay, so I think we're gonna do sort of a voice consensus thing. I don't think we're gonna do motions and voting on this. We're gonna come up with what we think are sort of our guidelines and our notes for what we need to study and get answers to. But then we'll vote on what the settings are as a complete document. That's a final menu of settings. So okay, so I feel good about that. That's a 99% going to be IRV. Previous round evaluation method. So I'm just going to go down here and read this and say, the system has the option to try and break a tie by looking at the vote totals in previous rounds. The following options are available. So you can do none, where ties are broken manually. That would be like a coin flip done, I imagine by the city clerk in the presence of candidates or representatives there. Backwards, so the system attempts to break ties using vote totals in previous rounds, going backwards from round preceding to the current round, preceding the current round to the first round. So you're stepping backwards round by round, looking at, if you're in the fifth round, you're going to look at the fourth round first, and then the third round, second round, etc. Or forwards, which is the system will attempt to break ties using the vote totals in previous rounds, going from the first round. So that's going, if you're in the fifth round, it's going to go round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So there's also an example that's given here in the docs, which is kind of nice of them to do, although it's a little bit verbose, but it shows kind of how these things, would work. Now, my understanding is that even in the forwards and backwards, if you get to a point where you have run out of rounds to look at, then you're doing a manual tiebreak. So the ordinance is going to have to talk about that, obviously, how we would do a manual tiebreak, although our current stuff already has to address that. So, yes, Tom.
If I'm not mistaken, our charter currently says that in the case of a tie, it goes to a coin flip. So without a charter amendment, I think that's the option we're going to have to adopt, at least for
Okay. That's easy.
That's very easy. Do you think, having probably the one with the most familiarity with that language, that we would be able to do either backwards or forwards before going to a coin flip? Or do you think that's all encompassing, like as soon as there's a tie, we have to deal with it?
It really just says, I could look up the language, but if I recall correctly, it basically says in the event of a tie, there will be a coin flip.
Okay.
So
Well, I guess you'd have to define what a tie is, because if we have a system to eliminate getting a tie,
Right.
Although you have to have a tie to implement the system, so it gets kind of weird.
Yeah, and where do you resolve that, here or in charter?
Well, I think semantically and logically, you could say that if a tie in a particular round is not a electoral tie, and so a one-round tie could be resolved sort of internally in our RCV system, and then if that is exhausted, like if it ends up in a not just a single round tie, then that's a real tied election, and that would go to the coin flip. So
Yeah, I would consider in the context of ranked choice voting that if you cannot resolve it with our choices, then that would be a tie. Because
Yeah.
kind of the point of ranked choice voting is to resolve tie. Well, a point.
yeah, this isn't going to come up often. It's going to be it's very rare that there are ties. Although once you get, if there are a lot of candidates, you see more and more ties. So in later rounds. So I will say that. Oh, go ahead.
I would just say that, if we're going to, if we look at this and we decide that there's some real merit in doing something other than the coin flip, which we may decide, I, out of an abundance of caution, would want to talk about that being figuring out a way to put an amendment into that charter language to clarify when a tie is, because I just wouldn't want there to be a situation where there are two candidates who are, like in this, okay, you're in round 3 and you have 6 and 6. Well, according to the charter right now, as I would interpret it, we should flip a coin. That gives them each a 50-50 chance. But if we're saying, okay, we're going backwards, then it would go to candidate A 100% of the time. So if you're candidate B, you'd have a real incentive there to make the argument that the way that we're doing this flies in the face of the charter, given that that at least gives you a 50% chance of advancing. And even though it's, I agree, very unlikely, if that's something that the committee feels like, you know what, coin flipping is dumb, we should totally, like, that candidate clearly has the stronger support based on their votes in the previous round, so that's the person who should advance, then I'm fine with that. But I think that that's something where we might need to, like, send a legislative petition and say, could you amend that for this case? And then that does potentially open up a can of worms where they might say, if they want to be sort of pedantic about it, they might decide that that's something that also needs to go back to the voters. So
that seems like it would just get way too complicated. I would just say, just make it as simple as possible. I can't imagine how you would make a charter change that would take backwards and forwards, and I don't know. I just don't think that.
I will say that far and away the most typical implementation I've seen of ranked choice voting is the backwards method, where you're going to, when there is a tie in a round, you're just looking at the previous round to break that tie.
So yeah,
that's still tied. You go back one. So that one seems to be the de facto. But
we really have enough information. I mean, I really wish that Jeff had kind of said, these are the most common ways that it's done, because how do we know? I don't understand this at all. And
so, the way I look at it, with the most common way that Dan was saying, we go the backwards method. And with that, you get the total of people, you get the most consensus candidate. But if you were to do the method where you look at vote at round 1, you get the candidate with the most first round picks.
Yeah, because the backward.
But the problem with that is, if we decide as a committee, we're almost doing the coin flip now, or how do you come up with which is the better method, the consensus? I guess that's the job of the committee. So, I mean, let me retract that statement. That's a good discussion to have, but I think that what Tom is saying is, yeah, we have to figure out a way to make this copacetic with the legislature, because we don't want a problem rolling this out.
And hey, you know what? Like, I'm perfectly happy if there's a really strong feeling here on this. Like, I think if Barb's saying that she doesn't currently understand it, then let's discuss it further, like what the actual implications are. And if there's a strong feeling that this is something that we need to do, we can always hit up the city solicitor and say, can we define a tie as sort of the final result of the election, not, the elimination in any given round. And if he's comfortable with that, then I guess I am. I just think it's something, if the goal is to have this implemented by 2021, it could be that he might think that there's something there. But with that being said, can I just because I know Barb just expressed some confusion, can I make a stab at sort of explaining what these differences would be?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. So what we're looking at in the document is the vote totals in round 3. So there's only 3 candidates remaining. Candidates A and B are tied. Now, the way that we do that I'm 100% certain is good with our charter, is that inside, the clerk's office, Barb would call the candidates in and flip a coin, and the candidate that wins proceeds into the next round. So that's the coin flip. Or really more specifically, that's manual, right? Like that's the idea that when that happens, it is then down to a physical human person, not an algorithm, to do a thing, and then that thing leads to the tie being broken. In backwards, if I understand this correctly, the idea is that we would then look at the vote totals in round 2, so the round right before this. And we'd say, okay, well, in that round, candidate A had 6 votes and candidate B had only 5 votes. So while they were tied in the next round, if we have to break the tie, we will use, we will eliminate candidate B and candidate A will advance into the next round. That, for what it's worth, is when former Council President McCoy had tasked me to write up a thing for using ranked choice voting for city council president elections in the case that a bunch of people ran one year. That's the ordinance that I have used that method of saying, okay, well, at the next round where, we have the closest sense, then it's whatever. And then the forwards method, if I understand this correctly, would use people's first choice votes. So their votes in round 1, where candidate B had 5 votes and candidate A had 4 votes. And you would say, okay, well, that's the purest sense of where people, maybe that's the argument, is to say that's the purest sense of where people really are. So we're just going to use their first round votes. In that case, candidate A would be eliminated and candidate B would advance to the next round. Did I get that right?
Yes.
That sounds right. That seems to be what I get from this too, but I think it's important to note that in this document, these 2 candidates that are tied for second. They're not tied for first. So that's like, there's no chance of them winning the election. So I'm not so sure that coin flip thing would apply here.
No, it would.
There is a chance of them winning the election because
You're right.
Say that the 2 of them, that all of their voters have the other one as their second choice.
No, you're totally right. I misspoke there, but there's no chance of them winning that. I guess there's no eloquent way of saying it.
You're on the right track.
What to do with their voters?
There's no way that either of them could win the election on solely this coin flip. You're not flipping to decide who gets elected. You're deciding which one of them goes on to round 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Who gets
or which one's eliminated.
Which yes, right.
Because you have to eliminate one person, at least one person every round. So
it's interesting. I think that if we should pick a backwards or forwards if the opportunity is there. I think that we shouldn't I mean, they both have their merits, and we should figure out which is the best.
I would strongly lead towards backwards just because it is almost the de facto standard. I mean, in almost all of the step-by-step basic demonstrations of RCV counting, they'll do backwards in the case of ties. I think it's a little bit more fair than doing a coin flip because we have the information. That's one of the beautiful things about RCV is that we have this extra preference data to work from.
Right.
And so I think if in round 2, there's a preference for a certain candidate, and in round 3, they're tied, then we say, yeah, we can look at these other rounds and we can say round 2, that they're in the lead. It's also much easier to count by hand. Well, I don't know, because if you're tabulating and you're recording all of the values as you're counting, it's not so bad. But if you're just counting ballots, doing backwards is very, very easy to count.
Hey,
I do think the question of can we legally do this based on our charter is a good one. And if I would very strongly argue that if there is a legal question, then we simply do
Well, wouldn't it be, I read the charter as if in the end there ends up being a tie, then there'd be a coin toss. But this thing right here, this isn't the final, as you're saying, right?
I think that's a good point.
So in the end, you could still do the coin toss, but this is like in the interim, like leading up to who are the 2 last people.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
I mean, this is just some programming thing that the computer's going to do to get to the end, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Sarah?
And I think that given the strong preference by voters for ranked choice voting, it wouldn't really be in the spirit of what they voted for to just start flipping coins and to not use the ranked choice voting that they felt that strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like we have a consensus on figuring out backwards or forwards. But Tom, what's the procedure for getting the solicitor involved? I mean, they bill the hours and stuff, right?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I need to reach out to the city council president and just get it approved, but there's an understanding that we have a line to the solicitor. So what I might do, or what might be the best way to do it, is to rather than have it be a real back and forth, like if we compile a list of questions for the solicitor on this stuff, because if this is the only question, that's one thing, but if there's 2 or 3 more, it might just be more efficient to do it all at once.
But Tom, don't you agree that like with the one that we're looking at right now, that's not the final vote. And when you get down to the final vote, you wouldn't be able to do, you could just leave it because that is the final vote. It would be a coin toss if after all the rounds that you go through. But
I agree.
Well, so let's just say for an example, and I'm sorry if these examples get tedious. Okay, so we use the backwards method, which is my preference, all other things being held equal. Right now, I could be talked out of that, but so we're in round 3, and those 2 candidates have 6 votes each, and out of those votes, and then we eliminate. So we go backwards. So candidate B is eliminated, and it's just candidates A and C remaining. But let's just say that the votes for candidate B end up in a way that each voter has what? So 10. So candidate A has 10 votes, which means they got 4 from candidate B, and candidate C has 10 votes, which means they got 2 from candidate B. Following so far? Okay. So in that case, we have a actual tie coming out, right? There's the 2 final winners of the election, and there's a tie. But just the same there, we could use this backward method to say that, well, in the previous round, candidate C had the most votes. and therefore should be declared the winner. You know, if we're deciding that that step is more, is better at reflecting the will of the public, then that step could just as easily be used in the final tally as it could at any of the any of the preceding rounds.
Right.
Okay, I see.
But if the result of stepping back round by round still resulted in a tie, then you would use a coin.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that we could potentially do, if it really came down to it, is I could reach out to Rep. Carey and Senator Vilas and say, hey, we did this thing. We think it's a lot better, but the one thing is it requires a small amendment to our charter, and we don't think it needs to. I mean, because it's really just like holding a whole other election over this minor procedural step that isn't really going to change anything is not like, I think that's silly. But if they say, hey, this won by 11 points and it's really just it's a minor thing that probably won't ever actually come up when you're looking at an election with 4,000 to 5,000 people voting in it, then maybe they'll just say like, oh no, that's fine, we can just get that through, and then there's no issue.
So I have the language here if you guys want to hear it.
Sure.
Whenever an election results in 2 or more candidates for the same office receiving the same number of votes for the office, and only one such officer is to be chosen. That's not grammatically correct, but that's how the sentence ends. And then it goes on to how to break the tie. But I think the meat of the sentence is when the election results in 2 or more candidates receiving the same number of votes to win the office.
I think results matters too, because results implies something final rather than
that's my point. That's my point. I think that we shouldn't have a problem choosing one is my point. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't consult the solicitor, but I don't think it will be an issue.
Do you guys see the question that I put up here that I shared? I've just figured if we're going to have a list of questions for legal, I'll start making that list.
Yeah, I guess
I think that's
that's good. I mean, since I don't know the charter by heart, it probably would be a good idea to actually see exactly how it reads. Just.
That's what Chris just read, right?
Yeah, that's what I read. I'll try to post the text in a sec, but my battery's low. I'll be right back.
Okay. So I'm going to keep compiling this as a set of legal questions. In the absence of the legal possibility conflict there, I would vote for backwards here, partially because it is kind of such a standard, and that's something that we would certainly want to check in with Jeff about. I imagine that Jeff would say that backwards is used is sort of the default.
Yep.
Maybe perhaps none, but I would guess backwards is typically used. So I would want his feedback on that, but that's the one that I would want to use.
Sounds okay to me.
I agree.
Cool. Okay. All right. So we'll tentatively have that one be backwards from previous round with our new set of legal questions. So next is elimination type. I'll just read this. The system can be configured to eliminate single candidates or multiple candidates each round through the elimination type setting. The following options are available. So we have single, only one candidate per round is eliminated. This is the simplest method. Single and tied. The candidate with the lowest vote total and any candidates tied with that candidate is eliminated. This manual is horrible in terms of grammar, by the way. This only occurs if the following conditions apply, otherwise it will fall back to single. So if the vote total sum for all the tied candidates is less than the vote total for the next continuing candidate with the fewest votes. Wow, I have to parse that sentence. That's difficult. The vote
And would you
total
mind
sum.
resharing the other
Oh,
document?
yeah. Sorry. Yep. So I'm looking at this right here. So let's see if we can make sense of that. The vote total sum for all tied candidates is less than the vote total for the next continuing candidate with the fewest votes. Okay, so that makes sense. So that's, do the tied candidates, if you take their votes and add them together, do they still have fewer votes than the next next lowest person?
Mhm.
So it's like if in this particular round, the two lowest candidates had 5 and 5, and then the next lowest had 15. You add 5 and 5, it's 10, it's still lower than 15. And the number of continuing candidates is at least one more than the remaining number of positions to elect. Okay, so that's just, do we have enough people left? Okay, so I have a better sense of what that one is. And then batch, which is similar to single and tied. All candidates that are certain to be eliminated in subsequent rounds are eliminated in a single round. Batch elimination will try to eliminate the largest possible amount of candidates from the list of remaining candidates, ordered by vote total in ascending order, for which the following conditions apply. So the vote total sum for all candidates to be eliminated is less than the vote total for the next continuing candidate with the fewest votes. That's exactly the same. That means that everyone being eliminated in total, all of their votes are fewer than the next the next fewest person. And then the number of continuing candidates should be at least one more than the remaining number. You're not eliminating two more than there are positions. In this case, that would be, you're not eliminating everyone. If the number of candidates that would be eliminated due to batch elimination is less than 2, the system will fall back to single elimination type behavior. Why that sentence needs to be written, I don't know, because less than 2 is...
If you have one, you have one. That's what that sentence says.
Some of these are clearly written by a software engineer. All forms of candidate elimination, including batch elimination, take place after all surplus has been transferred. This means that at the moment of batch elimination, the surplus has already been transferred. So that's an STV.
Yeah, we don't have surplus because we only have single winner elections right now.
Okay, so my you know, not professional, but experience understanding of this is that it's more of a record keeping and formal structure thing than it does not affect the results, the final results. It just means if you have 5 candidates, are you necessarily going to have 4 rounds, or might you have only 2 rounds because a couple people are mathematically unable to win? You know, even though this is a slightly complicated question, I actually think the significance of it is more in terms of how we present the results to voters than it is for who gets elected.
Right.
As in, do we want to have all of these rounds if there's 4 or 5 people? The safest thing to do here is to just say single.
And I think that lets people go back and sort of see for themselves what happened. You know, when you're changing the method of voting, I think people want to be confident in it. Yeah. So I think they would have that advantage. Yeah. However, you know, when people are actually tabulating it, it might be easier for them to do another kind of, you know, elimination just for expediency's sake. But
I think in my gut, I would go to single and tied on this. It's actually sort of a nice balance. So batch elimination, you can have someone who, you know, you can have if there's 4 or 5 candidates, you could have the bottom 2 or bottom 3 with different vote tallies all eliminated in the same round. And I think that is a little bit odd or a little bit confusing to people. However, if you had 4 candidates and 2 of them are tied in last place and mathematically incapable of winning, I do think it makes sense to eliminate both of them, as long as
people can understand that.
Right. If it's 100 votes, 100 votes, and the next has 500, and the next has 1,000, I think it makes sense to eliminate the two with the 100 votes, and it's very clear, neither one of them is going to be able to get 500 votes in order to stay in the race. So
Right.
if you don't do single and tied, then you have to do tie breaking, which is another thing that makes it more complicated potentially. So,
Right. I think single and tied makes sense. I mean, and just for the benefit of anyone who might end up watching this, the sort of the point here is that, like, if you had, I'm just sort of restating what you're saying, Dan, like, if you had a handful of candidates, like, say, you had two candidates with 100 votes each. Even if every single one of those voters put the other candidate with 100 votes each as their second choice, right, and they consolidated their votes together, they would then have 200 votes, which is still less than the, in your example, 500 that the next candidate got. So if both of these candidates are tied for last place and their combined votes won't change anything, then we can eliminate them as a batch. That also probably helps, with eliminating, people who got one write-in vote or whatever.
Well, it would eliminate all. It would eliminate all of the ones in the round. If you do single and tied, it's not gonna do a full clear out of everyone who can't win. But it sounds like, to start with, for RCV, there's some interest in not eliminating people with different counts in the same round. I don't know. Chris, you had your hand.
I think with no matter which one we choose, the data will remain available, right?
Yes.
We'll have all the ballots and all the orders that everyone ranked everyone in. So I guess my question is, how do we access that as citizens? Like, if I want to know how strongly correlated candidate D and E were, even though they were eliminated in the first round, how do I find that out? Is that something that can be done?
Are ballots public record?
No, I don't know if they are, actually. I mean, nobody comes and looks through them unless there's a recount. But nobody would do that. I mean, there must be a way of getting reports out of it.
Yes, and you can.
I can't imagine anybody's going to come in and paw through, all the ballots. Unless there's a recount.
We can share a cast vote record with results so that people could download a digital representation of what all the data from all the ballots is.
So yeah, that pretty much settles my concern. I mean, if this is just a bookkeeping question or record keeping question, then that doesn't matter to me, as long as we have access to figure these things out.
I think of it a little bit more as a optics question, because it's going to be the form in which the rounds are presented to the public. So it's not so much record keeping, because record keeping, we're going to have the cast vote records. That's all. That's the data. That's what every ballot looks like. This is more how are the rounds presented to voters?
Yeah.
I would suggest simply, even though single appears to be the simplest, I do think that either single and tied or batch is a better option, because if you do single, you're going to deal with a lot more tie breaking, because you're going to have all these little, even with, let's say you had legitimate write-ins, let's say you had 5 write-ins, each with 1 vote, you're going to have all these tie breaking things going on, and you might have to do coin flips between this person who got 1 write-in vote and this person who got 1 write-in vote just to get to the next round. So I think that actually makes it considerably more complicated.
I thought we weren't doing coin flips between rounds.
Well, if it's the first round, there's no previous round to go back to. So if you have 3 people who each get a write-in, then you would have to coin flip to figure out which one proceeds.
Well, I think that comes down to how we deal with write-ins too, because, there's, as you know, Dan.
Yeah.
That's a question of how we deal with write-ins.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Didn't the vendor say something about looking at all write-ins as
As a group.
Right? And if all write-ins can't meet the threshold, then no write-ins can meet the threshold, and they can be discarded. Right?
Which
Am
would
I
make
remembering that
sense.
correctly?
I think that makes sense because all the write-ins will be on the same line. So the system will essentially see them all as the same candidate until human eyes can get on it, right?
So I believe that there's a process prior to this, which is called resolving of write-ins. Because there's this setting later that we're going to talk about called exclude unresolved write-ins that says any rankings for write-ins that were left unresolved will be ignored. So I think there is a step before tabulation in which write-ins are resolved. And that is kind of assigning them all to a write-in bucket or assigning them to individual names. And I know Jeff talked a little bit about that, but it's not part of this particular profile. I think that would be something that we would want to talk to Jeff about is how are write-ins resolved? Like what is the process of resolving write-ins look like, and how would that?
Like right now, if most write-ins go into all other write-ins, they just all batched in together. If there was somebody like the time when John Sybeck won, that would be different. But for the most part, I don't break out write-ins at all even now. I have them if anybody wants to see them, but otherwise they're all other write-ins. They're just, and I would assume that this would continue because.
Yeah, I mean, the only time right now that you'd ever, like if there was a race for mayor and the write-ins all together got more votes than any of the individual candidates, then you'd have to be like, wait, are these all for the same person? Because if so, they might have just won. But if they're less than any candidate, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Do people ever write in for a candidate that's on a ballot?
I was just wondering that.
Well, sometimes, yep. But then there's also times when there's declared write-ins, people
Right.
who know
The
who they
stickers
are,
or, yeah.
whether they're written in, but sometimes they do. Yep.
So I think that's all part of a process that happens in the software aspect of this prior to the tabulation. So I would on this one lean toward the single and tied.
Sounds good.
Excuse me, I'm in a meeting.
The world of Zoom.
8-year-olds.
Yeah. I would lean towards single and tied just because even if that results in slightly more columns, you're kind of seeing the process happen.
I agree. I think it might be a little easier for people to follow than the batch elimination, which I think some people might be like, wait a minute, where'd all those people go?
Yeah. They're just all being swept out at once. So
Yeah.
and it's easier than single because, if you have a bunch of people with one or a bunch of people with a few, then they all go at once.
Yeah.
If they can, How do people feel about that?
I have no qualms.
Seems fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a really strong preference there, but single and tied seems to make a good deal of sense to me.
Okay. I'm going to just note down a questions for Jeff also. And we can consolidate these if other people have these as notes later. But basically, what is the process for write-in resolution? Because I'm not worried about the situations like the 90% of the time where we just have a bunch of weird write-ins. I'm worried about when someone is running a legitimate write-in campaign, how that's going to get sorted out. So how he resolves those. Okay.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
What's that?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to highlight or just get this in the record for the language here, and then show it to you guys as well.
I don't see it.
I don't
Oh.
see it either.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant video. I see your face.
No, I'm showing the screen. It says that I'm sharing it. Maybe you need to stop sharing yours.
Let's see if I can.
Hold on, you are viewing Daniel's screen.
Yep.
There we go.
Oh.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the tie vote thing, I was going to bring that up because
Yeah, the chat is off, so I couldn't just cut and paste.
I think that 7.5 shows that when it gets down to the final round, if it's a tie, it needs to be a drawing.
Yeah, it seems
All
to
the
me
other
that
ones up till then can go backwards, but it looks like the final would have to stay a drawing.
yeah, it seems to me that the results of the election. So you can make whatever mechanics you want for the election,
Yeah.
just to put it a different way. But we should still, check.
Yeah,
You know what? I actually think maybe it would be a good idea to reach out to our legislators and just see where they think the legislature would be on this. If we just said, hey, look, we did a big charter question. It passed with strong support. As we're looking at it, we're realizing there's another little mechanical fix we need to make in certain cases. How hard do you think that would be? Because the city council is currently looking at all that other charter review stuff right now. So it wouldn't be the end of the world to consider just asking them about swapping that out if and to just amend that section 5 to say in the case of a ranked choice election, we would handle this blah blah blah.
Are you willing to reach out to them with that inquiry? Because that would be.
so
I mean, if it is better to have the committee members of the committee or committee chair, we can.
I'm more than happy to do it. Or I'm more than happy to do it. I'm sure that Owen would be more than happy to do it. As well, so.
But you're right in that this would have to stay, it would have to be like have two parts to it. One for the keeping this for the multi-winner races and having an option for the ranked. So this whole section would need to have like two paragraphs.
Yes. So I think that's a good idea. I'll send an email and just see where people are on that.
Okay. My feeling is that it's probably the likelihood is I don't see a constitutional crisis coming out of this as it is, but getting some other opinions makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and if we do have to publish every tie break in the paper, then that's problematic.
See, that's what I'm thinking.
I've never seen a tie in 36 years. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree, but I think there probably wouldn't be one, but the situation that I would just dread would be that the solicitor comes back and says, no, any step along here where you're going to eliminate someone, you really need to follow the charter. And then there's like two candidates who get 7 votes each. Like some totally non-viable number. Or
And then they sue.
delay our entire election for.
But if you read this, it says when an election results in for the same. I mean, I think you can kind of read that as okay. We're down to the final, and these two people have the exact same number. I mean, I don't think if you're doing round by round, an election results.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the back part of it. It's just how it ends up at the very end.
I'm with Barbara on this because I see that argument being dismissed in a court by a judge, or being that argument, what Barbara just said, being upheld and being sort of like,
This
is ridiculous.
Results. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you're right. I just want to do my due diligence on it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree.
appreciate that.
I agree with both of you guys that we're right in being able to do this, but I also agree with Tom that we want to leave nothing on the table to be screwed up.
Yep.
All right. Where were we?
So we are now on to votes to include in threshold calculation. So this is weirdly Here, let me share this again. Sorry. So this is super weird in that it jumps down to this further on, and this is included twice in the manual. You can see it's included here, and then it's also included here. Don't know why. So this may be irrelevant to IRV. It might only be, oh, no, I see what this is. So let me read it. The option will determine the number of ballots used in the threshold calculation. Continuing ballots per round, which is one of the options. Each round, the threshold will be recalculated using the number of continuing ballots in that round. This is the sum of all candidate vote totals for that round. Or continuing ballots first round. The threshold will be based on the number of continuing ballots in the first round. This is the sum of all candidate vote totals for that round. The same threshold will apply to all rounds. Note, if first round suspension option is used, the suspended will not be included in the threshold calculation. Okay, and then this basically says the same thing later in number 13 here, using slightly different wording. So to put this in sort of layman's terms, I am at this point about 90% sure that you want to do continuing ballots per round and not continuing ballots first round. And the reason that is because of exhausted ballots. So as you're going round to round, if people have not ranked a second candidate, those become exhausted, and your threshold for winning should go down for that round in order to have someone win with a majority. If you don't do that, then how the hell does that even work? You could have no winner, right? Because you could have someone who doesn't attain the threshold because the threshold is more than a simple majority of that current round.
This is weird. This is confusing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't even know how that would work mathematically.
Yeah.
I think it might only work if you have rules set in place that you don't need 50% plus one. Then it would work. But if you require 50% plus one to end your ranking, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The threshold is the number of votes sufficient for a candidate to be elected. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean advance to the next round.
Right. So I think this comes into play a bit more in STV than it does in IRV. Because in IRV, maybe it's not even relevant in IRV because I just don't understand how that threshold not adjusting based on exhausted ballots would.
Yeah, this has to be just a thing for multi-winner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could see it in multi-winner where you're saying like a lowered threshold might mean less rounds, and there's a possibility that those later rounds might mean something.
Yep.
So I could see there being like a relevant argument, like a conversation we had there about that. But
So to give some context also, every RCV count example and actual real world results that I've seen adjusts the threshold per round. And it's basically eliminating the exhausted ballots from that total. So I think that's kind of the de facto standard here. This is something that I'd want Jeff to speak on if he would have anything to add about it.
So Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify for my own brain here, you're saying that you start the election with 100 ballots cast, right?
Yep.
Meaning that you need 51 votes to win.
Yep.
Say you get to round 3 and you've exhausted 10 ballots. Now you need half of 90, which is 45 plus 1.
46, correct.
So, yeah, okay, yeah, yep. All right.
So that's kind of why, like, for IRV, I think this is moot. If it's STV and you're electing for 2, seats, then your threshold is 30, what is it, 34, I guess. And so maybe that does make a difference to the count. I would love Jeff's input, but I'm 90% sure that what we want is continuing ballots per round, and that this is kind of a moot question for single winner.
Yeah, because I think that this section is threshold calculation. So threshold's always 50% plus 1 for single, like you're saying. Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's moot.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about some of these either or yes no things. So use previous tiebreak decision. If this option has been checked, the system will remember any manual tiebreaks that were resolved for contests tabulated under this profile. The next time that you tabulate this context with the same option selected, the system automatically resolves the ties in the same manner. I think we want this to definitely be yes.
I'm sorry, I've lost where we are in the document.
So, yeah, so look at this one that I've highlighted. Can you see my highlight?
Sorry, I'm juggling some windows. Give me a second. Okay. Use previous tiebreak decision?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's just the window juggling. It's getting
Yeah. So basically, to paraphrase this, is what it's saying is, if there is any if at any point you need to do a coin flip, let's say you go back to previous rounds and you run out of rounds and you have to resort to a manual tie flip, or coin toss. Should we remember that decision if we have to recalculate the race? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I think once that flip is done in person in the clerk's office with the candidates, that's the result for that. And if you need to rerun the thing for some reason, a recount or a re-audit, whatever, that tie flip is what happened.
Yeah, I think it would be very confusing, and it would seem unfair to do a whole new coin flip. I think that would be really weird.
Because then you would just have to recall an election if you lost the coin flip, and
right.
Yeah,
and you'd coin flip again. Like, yeah, it's just it's crazy. So it's sort of like that coin flip then. And this is only because in our current system, you would only ever flip a coin once. But right, because this has rounds, you could have more than one, and it makes sense to have it just sort of have a memory for that. The coin flip becomes a ballot in essence, sort of.
So the only thing with this for me is I just want to make sure with Jeff that we're understanding this in the right context, and that it isn't something where, oh, I don't know. I just want to make, like, when it says subsequent the system will remember any manual. The next time that you tabulate this context, what is the next time? Is it just for if you want to rerun things for some other when do you need to run it more than once? I just want to understand better.
For like a recount situation?
That's my guess. And right, and under such a situation, you'd want to remember that, right?
So imagine if you had a full recount, right? Because then you're hand checking ballots. You might have a couple things that are a little bit different than the machine read, or one or two extra ballots that didn't get read properly or whatever. So then at that point, you would have to retabulate it.
And if in that retabulation there's still a tie,
correct,
you want to respect the results of that flip,
right?
However unlikely that might be, as long as there's not some weird other situation that I'm not thinking about, then I think I agree with you on that. Okay,
I definitely think we should ask Jeff about that, but I think for the moment, it seems like we're on the same page with it. Exclude unresolved write-ins. If this option has been selected, any rankings for write-ins that were left unresolved will be ignored. If the ranking containing an unresolved write-in was overvoted because of that unresolved write-in, the ranking will still be considered overvoted even when this option is used. English.
Overvotes we don't need to worry about because this isn't multi-winner, right?
No, there can still be overvotes. So an overvote is when someone votes for a candidate.
Yep.
Two candidates for first place. You know.
Okay.
That's an overvote. So any rankings for.
I'm not clear what unresolved write-ins means.
I'm not either. So that's a great question for Jeff. What is an unresolved write-in? Like, is that an unreadable write-in? Is that a Mickey Mouse vote? Like, what is that? If the ranking containing an unresolved write-in was overvoted because of that unresolved write-in, the ranking will still be considered overvoted.
You mean maybe they wrote someone in but didn't rank it?
No, I think that means if they wrote someone in but they ranked it equal to somebody else.
Oh.
And that write-in is unresolved.
So if you voted for me and also for my dog Flora.
Oh, Flora.
Yeah.
I'd vote for her.
Yeah, I get that. She's
So
great.
that's going to be something that kicks out.
Right. So that would be something that kicks out. So,
Like we'll deal with those manually. I don't even know how we would do those.
right. And aren't you saying that with this sort of technology at this point, if somebody voted for two people first place, it would spit that out and
Yeah, Jeff said that.
Then people would either, now that's something that if the machine senses that somebody did that, it might kick it out and the person would be able to re-vote.
Yep.
Or if they're gone, we would override it and it would just be a blank or that.
right. So I think it's just warning that in that case, this doesn't fix that problem. I think that's all that sentence is meaning to say.
I'm still confused by the write-up of this because it seems like this question, if you say yes, exclude unresolved write-ins, then what you would want is, if that's an unresolved write-in that is overvoted, you would want it to not be considered an overvote if the option is used.
Which says even when this option is used, excuse me, this is even, like it would still be considered overvote.
An overvote, which means it's not being ignored. So what the hell does the setting even do? See what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question for Jeff.
Good question for Jeff.
Yeah.
I guess in the absence of Jeff, I would say flip a coin on this one. No, we'll ask Jeff more about how this works because
I can't really weigh in on it until I know what an unresolved.
Yeah, and what does the option actually do if excluding it means that it's still counted as an overvote? Then how is that ignored? So, or how is that excluded? Like,
I think it's saying like, okay, so say that there's someone that we're counting as an unresolved write-in, whatever that means. Maybe it is, yeah.
right, it's a vote for Scribble or Mickey Mouse. Yeah.
That vote will just be ignored, so it'll go to whoever your second place is. It won't even count first place.
Oh, okay, I see. It kind of just bumps it out.
Right, but what it won't do is if you've got an unresolved write-in and a legitimate candidate that are on the same column, it won't. What I think it's just warning that it won't deal with that problem.
I see. In that sense, I would be inclined to say yes on this one because if someone does Mickey Mouse but then has a second choice that's reasonable, I would say, yeah, let's look at the second choice.
I think so too, but I still don't exactly know what an unresolved write-in is.
I don't either. So I think I definitely that's a good question for Jeff. Let's follow up here. Do people feel good to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Declare winner by threshold. If this option has been selected, the system will declare winners by threshold. The threshold is the number of votes sufficient for a candidate to be elected. Threshold is calculated in each round by taking the number of continuing ballots divided by the number of positions to elect plus 1, right? This is a little more STV specific. Then adding 1 to the quotient, disregarding any fractions. This option is left unselected. The system will not use the threshold to elect candidates, but will continue eliminating candidates each round until the number of continuing candidates is equal to the number of positions left to be elected plus 1. It will then eliminate the candidate with the least amount of votes and declare the remaining candidates as elected. Okay.
So this only matters for multi-winner because
This does only matter for multi-winner.
yeah, because I mean, if somebody gets over the 50% threshold, which
Correct.
is be calculated here, then no other candidate could ever beat them, no matter what. Right. So
This is definitely only applies to multi-winner. So I don't think yes or no on this is going to make a difference to IRV. Use district precinct. If this option is checked, the system will perform all calculations per precinct and allow for reporting to report each precinct separately. By leaving it unchecked, all results will not be separated per precinct. This option is relevant for STV because calculating surplus transfer for each precinct separately will create a higher total surplus transfer remainder than when surplus transfer is not separated per precinct. So this isn't going to affect the result in IRV for single winner. It will make the results look very different if it's broken down by precinct.
Well, I think it has to be broken down by precinct.
Well, for precinct races, it does.
Well, even,
Obviously.
I mean, even now, mayor is broken down by precinct.
Right.
I know I would definitely want to see what my precinct went, for whom my precinct went,
Okay.
even with ranked choice voting.
You would have to have that.
Yeah. Well,
There's
you
a
don't have to, but
No, I mean, but for me, for recording an election, it breaks down by precinct.
Yeah.
It has to.
And there's going to be a different machine for each precinct.
Right.
well,
Right.
remember the machines only report the first place votes at the end of the night. It's all
Right, and
combined.
then you take that away, and yep.
Yeah, you combine everything for the tab for the
Pardon?
final tab.
I still think it should be by precinct.
Okay.
That's
I
something that's
agree.
going on with us. I really agree because I think that, it's not the reason we do it. One of the great little bonuses that comes with ranked choice voting is you get a sense of where people are really at. So if you find that like you were the second place of a lot of people who supported your opponent in this precinct, but not in this one, that's interesting.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, I think so too. Obviously, if and when we do have multi-winner, we would have to look a little bit more into the math of this because it is relevant. But for single winner, it's not going to change any results.
Right.
Pause after round. When this option is selected, the tabulation session will pause the tabulation session after each round. If it is not selected, the session will continue until the end or until a manual tiebreak is required. This is, I would say no, you probably don't want it to, but that's just me.
Is that just so that the clerk or whoever is doing this can look at it?
My guess is that I guess in some places they will run this tabulation publicly, like with a projector, and like anyone who wants to view the tabulation is following along with the software. And so this would stop it after every single round, as opposed to just kind of, I mean, the calculation takes a couple seconds. I mean, the computers are it's not complicated math. So it'll spit out a result immediately if you don't do this. I would be inclined to not have it pause, but I guess if it was being, this seems like an interface setting and not a tabulation setting, but it's here.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't think you need to do that.
I wouldn't either,
It's
but
just gonna be something that while you're sitting at the computer,
yeah, you're pressing return over and over again. It's like, why am I, it's sort of weird. Maybe if it was a big city and the revealing of the rounds was a lot of people watching, I don't know. We're skipping over, so this isn't even on my sheet, but fixed precision decimals is only applicable to STV and IRV. And
Hey,
sorry,
Dan,
yes.
before we go forward with that, can we go back to number 9, uses districts/precinct?
Yes.
How confident are we that this doesn't affect the calculations, I mean, the results at all? Because I'm a little confused about the calculating surplus transfer for each precinct separately.
So there's only a surplus transfer in multi-winner races.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Going back to stuff, can I make the argument that for some of these things that are more interface than tabulation, we make no mention of them in the ordinance rather than so like the pausing after rounds, I right now don't necessarily see any value in that, but we might decide when you look at the election that actually people are really going to want to see how this plays out, and maybe that makes a lot of sense. So I don't want to, like, there's things in the ordinance where I'd want to explicitly say we are taking this this path rather than this one.
Yep.
But in situations like that that really only have to do with how, like, that cannot affect the outcome and that only affect sort of how people interact with the outcome.
Yeah.
My argument would be that in those cases, we make no recommendation in general so that the city at that time, unless we feel that it's really important that the city interact with this data and present this data in a particular way.
Yep.
I mean, I think that the ordinance doesn't have to have all these little details. It needs to be fairly general. These are things that I think Jeff's going to need to program the program so it comes out how we want it to, but it's going to be more behind the scenes.
Yep.
You know, I think the ordinance, I wouldn't think it doesn't have to have all these little details in it. That's not important for the ordinance.
It doesn't need to have all of them, but it does need to have some of them.
Some of them, but not all of them. Like the pause after rounds and
no, it doesn't need pause
that
after
matters.
rounds.
But my general thought is that anything, regardless of how minute, that has any possibility, however remote, of actually affecting the outcome of an election to codify, because that's what people, when they are going to enter an election, that's going to be the information they have about how these things run. And if there's not a clear, I'm just saying this is like, you know, obviously most people in the city voted for this, but there was some skepticism, and some of the charges that were made by the people who were opposed to it made, I believe, sort of asinine claims of statistical manipulation was words that they used. And so I do take it really seriously when we're looking at this stuff to make sure if there's anything that changes how the things are actually tabulated, the city needs to be able to fully articulate exactly how it's going to handle each of those responses, so that there's no situation where every party involved doesn't know what to expect.
Right. I agree. If there's any leeway in changing the outcome of the election, it has to be defined in the ordinance. But on the same note, I think that we should work pretty hard to not limit the city clerk's ability in changing things as they see fit for things like what we just discussed with an interface question.
Right.
But definitely we should leave no ambiguity with how votes are tabulated.
Yeah, I think you have to, you know, after this occurs a few times, there may be some little changes that'll be needed, and you don't want to have the ordinance so specific that those little changes that would just make things smoother can't be done because it's like written in stone. I think, and then you don't want it so complicated that nobody's going to understand it anyway.
Right.
So I think you have to kind of get the fine line between too much detail and not enough detail. You just you have to make it so it's understandable. And if you get too, I mean, I don't even understand a lot of this. I mean, I think it just has to be, you know, understandable, but still be able to have some flexibility behind the scenes to make, things work as they should.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It sounds to me, I'm hearing a lot of agreement here, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in general, if these are things, really just if these are things that that can't change the outcome of an election, then I just don't think we need to think too hard about them.
Right.
Things that can change the outcome of election, I think we need to be very thoughtful about them.
Agreed. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost done. So I'm going to go on to the next. If we're good.
Yes.
To move on. So perform elimination transfer in last round is the next one we're going to look at. I'm just looking at these in the order of the worksheet I have here. So this one, this only applies to IRV and points IRV. Well, let's see, because this might be a situation that doesn't affect the outcome. The tabulation system will stop early if it detects that the number of continuing candidates is equal to the number of positions left to be elected plus 1.
So in our case, 2.
Right. For example, if the number of positions to elect is 1 and the system detects that only 2 candidates remain at the start of the round, the candidate with the least amount of votes is eliminated and the remaining candidate is elected without going into another round. This option allows the algorithm to perform the elimination transfer for the elimination transfer. Wow. Proofreading, not existent. To the winning candidate if that winning candidate did not yet reach the threshold.
So it actually says, this only
applies to IRV and points IRV. Yeah. This is one that we do. Yes, that I think we don't need to discuss much, except what it means. And the reason there is I don't think it matters to the difference. It's just going to prevent an extra round if you're doing a threshold calculation that isn't met, but the winner, basically if the winner wins but without meeting the threshold because they have more votes in the last round, it just eliminates that last extra round. It's like a vestigial sort of round.
Why eliminate that? Why not just let it run?
Because it's moot, because it's kind of pointless. Basically, because you have, for our purposes, you have 2 people left. One has more votes. So why do you do it? Why do another round?
No, I totally get the logic behind it, but what do we gain by not doing the other round? As far as a transparency thing. But again, this is one of those things that doesn't really do anything.
Because then you have your final round where your winner has all of the votes. I
almost feel like you have more transparency if you don't do that last round, so that at least you see like, sure, I'm excited to know if I won, but I'm also excited to know how many people didn't vote for me.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot that this is how the final report will be. So yeah, you don't want to have a situation where, Tom Peake won with, 3,000 votes against, whoever with 0 votes. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's just sort of
North
weird.
Korea.
Got it.
Yeah, it would basically be the winner versus the number of exhausted ballots.
Totally get it. Yeah, no, never mind.
Kind of a weird thing. So,
which incidentally is what every election that I've ever run in has looked like. Anyway,
that's true.
You want to cement that forever? We can do that.
No.
All right. So let's talk about skip overvoted rankings. This option allows the algorithm to skip overvoted rankings and proceed to the next ranking. No overvotes will be recorded if this option is used and consequently not be shown in RCV reports. This absolutely matters to the tabulation. An overvote is where somebody votes for multiple people in the same ranking.
Yeah.
So if I were to vote for both Sarah and Tom as number 1,
yeah,
and then Chris as number 3.
Is there an instance where this ever gets through the pre-screening the machine does?
Yes, because the machine can pre-screen it, but a voter can still say, no, I want that to go through as it is. Or if it's an absentee ballot or whatever, it just has to
have left. They're gone.
Right, they're gone from.
It could be an early
vote.
We don't do early votes for local. So absentees, yeah. It's either a blank or they can revote.
So this definitely matters.
Okay.
That makes sense.
It's a bit of a tough one because you're getting into kind of a gray intent area
Well,
here.
I don't think that's necessarily true because it seems to me that the overvote would be like if they voted for candidate A and B as their first choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the overvote. So that's what we're asking about, what we're skipping. I think if you don't disregard that ballot, you still know who they voted for second, and that's valuable data. You just ignore that first overvote and make their second vote the first preference, right?
Yes.
Or can we assume that since they screwed up and overvoted to begin with, that the rest of it is not really relevant to their...
That is the decision here.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's tough because the tendency that some people have to, if I'll typically rank everybody if I can, which means I might sometimes be ranking for people I really don't like. So if I make a mistake and do an overvote, do I want that to be interpreted as, these two higher ones are even if it's an intentional overvote?
One thing I think we need to ask Jeff is, in an instance like this, would the machine kick it back to the voter like it does now?
It does. I'm 80% sure he answered that. That an overvote would be.
It would only be. Yeah. It would only be an instance where the person isn't there. In that.
Right.
I think that there's, if you're trying to gauge the impact here, I think that having a vote that probably, man, it's hairy stuff.
I think
We have a chance of getting a vote counted, and we also have a chance of cutting a vote. I would lean towards getting a vote counted.
Yeah.
I agree. And
Skip it.
unless I've gotten turned around, that means skipping the round, but then continuing with that ballot in the next round, right?
No.
No?
No. What
Okay.
it would do is it would almost be as if that ranking doesn't exist on the ballot at all.
They would just bump every other ranking up one, effectively.
Correct.
Ah.
So if it was two first place ones, it would be as if neither of them existed.
Okay. So,
And
but
the highest ranked one would be their,
that would be bumped up to your first.
correct.
That's interesting because it kind of preserves some of the intent, but perhaps distorts it.
It really depends on the election, right? Because if there's a bunch of people, so say that I'm the one who screwed this up, right? And I put my first and second choice vote on as my first choice vote. So I've got my third choice vote in the second vote column. So say that I do that. Is my third choice vote someone who I still kind of respect but really like the first two? Or is it somebody who I can't stand but I still think is better than the fourth choice person? Because if we're taking that third choice to now be my first choice vote, that could potentially create a real problem in a case where maybe that third choice is running neck and neck with my actual first vote.
Any sense on what the thinking is on this? Like what?
Well, my thinking is kind of like, so Tom said something that maybe pushed me in a direction here, which is the idea of the more and more distasteful at the bottom of the ballot, which is like, so an overvote, we cannot determine the voter's intent. We just can't. There's point-based ways of having it count for both, but that's not what we're doing. That's not the game we're playing with IRV and one vote, one person, one vote here per round. So in the absence of being able to resolve that, I guess I'm a little bit more comfortable with giving that person a say, even if it's a little bit, it's not inflated. It's not like they're getting more of a vote. It's just, I like the idea of them having a say between their third and their fourth, as opposed to none at all.
So I'm rereading this thing, and it doesn't seem like their ballot will get discarded. They just will. Will it?
I don't think for the other elections it
Not
will.
for the other elections,
No.
but for that particular election, it seems like instead of making your number 3 choice become your number 1 choice. Yeah, but there's no other way to get there.
There's no other way. It's basically it's either an exhausted ballot or it's not. And an overvote would be an exhausted ballot in all cases, unless this option is on, in which case you're going to skip those overvotes.
So to the point of, as you go down the rankings, you're voting for your least liked candidate last, which is obvious. You don't have to do that, though. You could not rank somebody.
Correct.
So
Well, you could, but sorry.
no, that's all I had to say about. I mean, meaning that there's some relevance that if you took the time to fill in that bubble, you are voting for them.
Well, here's where I guess here's where I guess I'm a little hung up about this. I'd really like to see what other places have done here, because presumably they have data on what other people are doing. This is where it hangs me up. Is say that I don't know how I did this, but so say that like my first choice ends up in a close election with my third choice, who I really don't like, but still think would be okay at the job, unlike the last person on the list who I just think would run the city into the ground. But I really strongly would prefer my first choice, who I overvoted accidentally, over my third choice. Now, if my ballot just gets thrown out, it doesn't help my first choice, but it also doesn't help any other candidate. If that first choice gets skipped because of the overvote, and so the person that my vote ends up going towards is the third choice, it could actually help that person win against my preferred candidate.
But if you overvote, effectively, you're not telling us what your preferred candidate is. So that's the tricky thing.
Well, that's not entirely true, because you are saying
one of the people that I voted for in the first column.
Right, I like both of these more than this person. Yeah.
It's certainly not the person I put after those two people.
Yeah.
You would think that there would be an option to randomize overvotes, like if there are 3, if someone put 2 people in the first place vote, do you think there'd be an option to be like, we'll just randomly assign one to one and assign one to the other?
That's a lot of coin flips, though.
Coin flips.
That's a lot of coin flips.
Voter intent, if they vote for both, that you have no way of knowing what they really intended.
But we do know they intended to rank both of them higher than number 3, right?
Correct, which is an argument to not.
But if there was ever a recount, I mean, there would have to be a blank on that first round. There'd be no way.
You couldn't reflip all those. Wait a minute. We're not reflipping.
No. We're not talking about. That's not even an option here of randomizing overvotes.
Can I just jump in here for 1 second? I have a question actually for Tom. Tom, when I set up this meeting, I just guessed and said 2 hours. Mm-hmm. If we go longer than 2 hours, is it going to cut off right at 8:30?
Well, that city council meeting wasn't set for 6.5 hours.
Yeah, I just didn't know because I've never said it before. So do you think it'll just keep going?
I think it'll just keep going.
Okay, all right.
I think that the more that we talk about this, the more I'm swayed towards not helping the third candidate when you clearly wanted 1 or 2 to win. And I know that the flip side of that is you're throwing a vote away. But you know what? They threw their vote away.
Yeah.
It would be thrown away now.
It would be thrown away now.
Yep.
And for what it's worth.
The status quo.
Right. And for what it's worth, this only really would affect absentee votes or votes by someone who just dropped it in and walked out the door before checking to see that it went through. Right. Because for anyone, so I mean, because obviously I feel really bad for the person who accidentally overvotes. But what we're really talking about is some kind of edge cases. I would just be mortified if I made a mistake. I don't know how I could make, especially if I'm doing it absentee, like I'm doing this in the comfort of my own home. I have the time. But if I made a mistake and it ended up with my vote like for my preferred candidate's strongest opponent.
Yeah, that could be really frustrating.
So that's the question: is an incorrect vote worse than no vote? And I'm starting to think that it is.
It could be. There are real situations. There are real situations where, like again, like you can't love, you like, you dislike, could live with, or you truly hate are running.
Mm-hmm.
End up making it so the candidate you dislike but could live with beats the candidate that you love.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking would be a distortion of the voter's intent, which is almost kind of worse than disregarding it, because you're not actually interpreting it correctly,
Yeah. You're right. I started this thinking that it's better to have a chance at a proper vote, but it's not. You definitely don't want Tom's scenario to kick in. And to be honest, to be clear, that's the only real scenario. You will be putting your third place person ahead of your first and second place person if we don't skip.
Yeah, I think talking this through has been very helpful.
Yeah. I will add a note here that in the vast majority of examples I've seen, as soon as you get to an overvote, it's an exhausted ballot. It's important. It's an important thing to talk about, but it's not. I would never describe it as normal to skip overvotes.
Of course you do. As in any ballot, you can have an overvote and run one race and then be perfectly fine in the rest. The rest of the ballot will still count.
Oh yes, very, very, absolutely. And you can have an overvote that's not in the first ranking either. You could have ranking 1, 2, and then overvote for third place and have 2 candidates for your third ranking, in which case those 1 and 2 would still count. Yeah. It's only that third preference and anything below it that would not count. So I think I've come around too to saying I think we should not skip overvote.
I agree with that. I'm leaning. I agree with not skipping the overvote. But how confident are you that the machine won't just say you ranked 1, 2, and 3 properly, but 4 and 5 you both marked as 4? Will it rank 1, 2, and 3, or will it?
Well, Jeff said the machine will spit it out because of an overvote. I'm 100% confident that 1, 2, and 3 will count. Okay. It's only the overvoted ranking and anything past it that is. Okay. Right, it only becomes exhausted at that point.
It occurs by round, and you're not taking information that you consider later into account before you get to that point.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. I think we have it sounds like we have a pretty good consensus on this one, that we do not want to do that. So I'm going to very briefly talk about this one that's not on this. That's called assign skipped rankings to the set of exhausted ballots. Because this is what we have to ask Jeff about, because we do not have the manual that corresponds to the newer version of software that we have. But what this sounds like to me is, what do we do with skipped rankings? And in most cases, I have seen one skipped rank is fine and is ignored, but more than that is exhausted. So I don't know if that is an option for us or not. We have to ask Jeff.
I've lost track of where we are again.
So don't look at this. Here, I'm going to actually share this just for a sec.
So a person just votes for one and doesn't do any of the rest of them. Is that what you mean?
No, this is if a person votes for one and then for a third place, but no second place. So I'm looking at
but then marks a third?
Yeah, so if they voted a first place A first choice and a third choice.
Oh, okay.
And a fourth.
That's an interesting one because we could get some intent, meaning that if we had a 5-person race and they voted for Tom and Chris in 1 and 2, and then skipped 3 and 4 and put, Dan for 5, they really hated Dan.
Exactly. So this is something people definitely do. Having looked at a lot of ranked choice voting returns, people hate vote sometimes, where they will skip a whole bunch and they will put somebody in last place, or they'll put 2 or 3 people in last place. And so, again, this is not related to the software because I don't know, because this isn't in the manual that I was able to pull up. So this is stuff that we have to talk about with Jeff. But the de facto standard that I've seen, and we even saw it in some of these other ordinances written out, is 1 skipped rank is ignored. More than 1 skipped rank is exhausted. So
Which
if you
makes
do
sense because I
1,
hate
2,
vote.
4, it becomes 1, 2, 3. But if you do 1, 2, 5, 6, it becomes 1, 2 exhausted.
Which makes sense because if you're going to hate vote somebody, there's no way you're not going to help them by voting for them one way or another. So,
Right. And you don't want that to get bumped up so
Right.
that it does help them. Yeah. Over the
although
people
it does come
at all.
into play when you've got a 3-person race and you hate vote the 3rd person.
Correct.
So that there is some nuance here.
Well, and some of this comes down to voter education because you can very explicitly tell people the people you do not rank are tied for last place. Like, these are the people you do not want, as opposed to, or you can say, like, any ranking is better than no ranking.
Yeah.
If any ranking represents a preference over unranked people. And I guess if you were to be very verbose about that, you could be more comfortable skipping ignoring skipped rankings, even multiple ones. But I think the balance most places do is they look at whether it's just 1 or it's more than 1, and do that accordingly. I would definitely, without more information, I would not want to say assign skipped rankings to the set of exhausted ballots automatically, because I would want a single skipped ranking to still be counted and to have it continue. But we have to find out what granularity we're allowed in terms of options. So can we differentiate between 1 or more skipped rankings? And then we're on kind of the last one here. I'm going to share this again. Didn't work. Oh, it did work. Ha. Which is used first round suspension. So that is this one. This option adds 1 more round at the start of results tabulation where only first rankings are evaluated in the algorithm. All the other results are suspended until the start of the second round. Using this option automatically adds a suspended category in the RCV reporting. What is the significance of this?
Yeah, I'm a little lost.
Well, it would give you immediately if somebody won outright.
Yeah.
Or because I don't know, when I read it, it seems to me that if someone didn't rank a number 1, then you're still going to run your first ranking. Yeah.
No, because the way ballots are interpreted is if it is it's not actually. I mean, you're expressing first choice, second choice, third choice on the ballot, but a ballot, the way it's counted is a ballot counts for the highest ranked non-eliminated candidate. So if you wanted to go in and just vote for one person, you could rank them as your 4th choice, and that's it, and that would count as a vote for that person in the first round because they're the highest ranked non-eliminated candidate. So I don't think this applies in the sense of skipping skipping unranked ranks.
I'm wondering if this might just be a reporting thing. I don't want to talk to Jeff, but I'm wondering if this is the thing where it says that the first thing it does is just spit out a report of who everyone's first choices were, so that you can get that out to the people, and then you start tabulating. But I don't see why. First of all, I just don't know that that's necessarily relevant. And also, I think that is in Easthampton. If I understand this correctly, in Easthampton, I think that's already accomplished by the tape
Right.
out of the machines. But yeah, I would just need a little more clarification on what that actually means.
I think you're right that this is just a reporting thing.
Yeah, the last line seems to imply that.
But it seems like the results that you would see, like is someone eliminated in this first round? The suspended first round? Because
to imply not.
it sort of seems to imply not, but anyway, yeah. We'll ask Jeff about this.
Or they would just call it a ranking or a tabulation.
Yeah, call it like a pre-round report or something. I don't. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what he says, because I'm sort of curious about that. But that's it. We're through this whole thing, which is great. I'm gonna just share this. This is where we're at in terms of our little worksheet. So does anyone have more that they want to add about these settings, these questions that we have? We had a legal question regarding coin flips, and then we have a fair number of things that we want to follow up with Jeff about. Before we move on, and we're getting close to the end of this meeting, do people want to add anything about sort of this topic? I'm hearing a no. So awesome. Thank you guys for walking through this, and I'm sure we'll have a bit more discussion about some of these things. Hopefully we can get Jeff on maybe our next meeting even. Let's see, where do I get the agenda? Sorry, my computer is very old. Okay. So we're basically at new business, and one thing that I wanted to discuss very briefly here is what is and I know there's people on this committee who know the answer to this. What is the process for us submitting a budget request, and should we be thinking about that sooner rather than later?
Well, that won't be until probably December.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay. So we're well ahead of the time that we need to do that.
Yeah.
I do want all the members of the committee to just keep that in the back of their mind, because we will need to get this $8,000 plus $800 recurring into the city budget, as well as anything that we want to do in terms of voter education. And I would hate to see that slip by because we didn't get it into the budget and get money for it. So
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I would probably say, early fall, definitely be nailing down the numbers. Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know the ins and outs of how the money process works, because I'm very new to city government at all. So
yeah, the treasurer's office puts out a budget request to all the departments, and this last year it was like December or so, and then you have a month or so to prepare it, and then it gets submitted to the mayor and the treasurer, and then eventually it gets put in the budget and goes to the council. But yeah.
So would this fall under the clerk's department, as in terms of the clerk's budget?
Yes.
Or would it be a committee budget?
I don't know if they'd want to do it in a separate budget, but I would I would kind of think at least the software and all that stuff would come under my budget
Okay.
because, I pay that already out of my budget.
Okay.
But as far as like the outreach and the public and all that, I don't know.
That would be more of a request from this committee specifically, right?
Yeah, I'd have to ask how they would want to handle that, whether it would just be another line item in my budget and I would have it in my budget. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's keep that in mind just so we aren't blindsided by it at the last minute and so that we can hopefully get some money to do some outreach with.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it's really clear from Jeff, confirm the amounts that are needed.
Yep.
From him at least.
Yep. I do have from him, so I do have, I'll share this. I'm still not good at the going between different windows here. There. So this, I do have from him this. My impression is that D-Suite licensing would cost the city $8,000 initially and then an additional $800 yearly. Are these numbers accurate? And his answer was yes, this is correct. So that I at least have something in writing from him that is confirming those.
Yeah, I guess the first year, sometimes, you don't have to pay that $800 the first year. So that needs to be clarified.
I think I even asked him that. Hold on.
Sometimes there's
Yep. Does the yearly $800 D-Suite licensing fee apply to the first year, aka total of $8,800 for the first year, or only subsequent years? And he says the $800 annual fee wouldn't take place until year 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's really $8,000 for the first year.
$8,000 for the first year and $800 for subsequent.
And it needs to be added to the budget.
And given that that's a one-time expense, we'd want to touch base with the mayor, but there's a possibility, depending on what our free cash ends up looking like, that should want to just fund that out of free cash because it is a one-time capital expense. And one-time capital expenses often don't find their way into the budget, which really is kind of like what we're going to operating expenses for the year, materials and payroll and stuff like that. So if we get to the end of this year and we get free cash and it doesn't all get completely drained, just keep lights on, when the state comes out with their budget, there's a possibility that even before budget season, we might just want to make a request.
We could put in a request
to buy it.
So we could do like an $800 budget thing and then a $7,200 one-time free cash kind of thing.
We would do the $8,000 for the main software, and then going forward, it would be just added into my budget.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right. Great. I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot about it. And then
I think the trickier part for the budget is going to be how much we want for, education and mailing and all that. That's going to be the trickier part.
Yep. And I guess since this is new business, I will add that to the agenda for next meeting because I think we should start having a conversation about that and about numbers and forms of things that are either going to cost money or not cost money. So we'll talk about that next meeting. Barbara, would you be actually? You know what? I now have, and I know you're busy. So since I have contact info for Jeff, I'm just going to invite him to our next meeting, and hopefully we can just have him answer some of these questions straight out.
Great. If you want to do that, that's perfect.
Yeah. I feel like your plate is already quite full. So
yeah, you know more of the details than I do.
Yeah. So let's pick a next meeting date. So I'm just going to pull my calendar. I think we are looking at July 15th.
Is there?
We're looking at,
I think we could do better not having it on a Wednesday.
so maybe July 16th, Thursday. And we could try going back to 6. It's 6 p.m. on Thursday, July 16th. Does that work?
That works for me, but I'm curious, is there a master list, a master calendar somewhere of all the Zoom obligations going on? Like, how do you guys know this doesn't conflict?
Well, you can tell when you sign up, but there's like 3 accounts. There's several accounts that can be used.
Okay, so it's a moot point.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like there's one for boards and committees, there's one for city council, there's one for the planning department, and you just can't have 2 going on at the same time.
okay. Thank you.
So I would propose 6 p.m. Thursday, July 16th for the next meeting. And we will assume that it will be Zoom unless we hear otherwise.
You know, I want to check what night CPA is. Is that, hang on one second.
Okay.
Calendar.
After the meeting, I'm also going to email out the status of the worksheet here and just the notes I had about following up with legal and with Jeff so that everyone has a copy of that stuff.
All right, I should not be doing this on my phone.
So it looks like the 16th is the CPA
It
committee.
is the CPA. Okay, that's probably, well, they usually use planning, I think.
I think so, right.
Okay.
And there's nothing else. There's no city council meetings.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. They use the planner account. So it should be fine.
Okay, great. So we will say the next one is July 16th, Thursday, starting at 6 via Zoom. And I forgot to say, does anyone else have new business they want to add?
Yeah, you know, Tom, I think what I'm going to do is I'll set this up under the boards and committees one, and then if by chance there is a city council one that night, it won't conflict.
Okay,
Okay?
great.
Cool. All right, I think we're good. Do we have a motion to close?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn? Yeah. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Cool. We are all set, guys. Thank you so much. I know that was a long meeting, but I feel good about what we discussed.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
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 Thank you.